Thank you so much for watching this video. Let's go ahead and get into today's topic. And I will be covering a book that I'm so excited to share and give you kind of my takeaways and interesting facts from it. Just in general, if you're interested in this type of thing, as I read other books that I feel like might be interesting, definitely let me know. I will plan to do another one in the future when I grab a book that's fashion related that I would like to share with the group. So don't forget to like this video as well as subscribe. That will be greatly appreciated. Also throw a comment down below or any questions that you may have. All right, so I am going to be talking about the Battle of Versailles, as you can see from the title. The book was written by Robin Gavin, I think, or Gavon. I'm not sure how you say her last name or pronounce her last name, but I will say overall, I love this book. Definitely go out and get it because it covers the history of American fashion and where it started and what it is today. And there were so many great tidbits, historical information, a wonderful read. And so I will definitely say go out and get that book. Let me actually, one second. I thought I put it in the closet and I didn't. Okay, so here is the book, which I'm pretty sure I will use as the thumbnail as well. But I just really wanted to talk about Robin for a second here. And so reading from the back excerpt of this book, she is a Pulitzer Prize winning fashion journalist. And so she is a fashion critic of the Washington Post, and she covers news, trends, and business of international fashion industry, which I find interesting. Just all over the business of fashion is very interesting to me. And she is the former style correspondent for Newsweek and the Daily Beast, and has also contributed to New York and Vogue, as well as other publications and magazines. And so in 2006, she won the Pulitzer Prize for this book here. So go out and get it. Go out and get it. I think it is an excellent read. And it's an excellent read. All right, so let me get into some things that I learned, which I thought were very interesting and wanted to share with you. And this is not everything, but this is just some of the top things that I wanted to take away. First off was I noticed that just overall what Robin would do was she would take the historical context, things that were going on around that time, that helped shape and mold the thoughts, the mindset, and then the actions that happen in the fashion industry, which I thought was very interesting. So one of the things that I thought was interesting was up until 2013, it was illegal for women to wear pants in Paris. And then I thought back, I called my mom because my mom and I went to Paris in 2016. And I definitely know I saw women wearing pants, I'm pretty sure. But I just thought it was very interesting. I don't know whether it was an enforceable thing that they would just, enforceable law at that point. But, you know, you have those like weird, I know I've seen them on the internet at times where you see these like weird laws that it's illegal to whistle in public, and it's still on the books. Nobody enforces it, but it's still there. But that was finally removed from no longer a law, and it took 2013. So I thought that was fairly interesting that it was illegal for women to wear pants. That's very interesting. Next up was the American. Pretty much, we can give credit to American fashion being put on the map and what it is today by Evelyn Lambert. She was the one who brought American fashion to the forefront, and definitely she gets credit for it. I might look into seeing if there's a book about her because I just want to see kind of the reason for her drive, her persistence. But we have Evelyn Lambert to thank for American fashion as it is today. Another thing that was interesting, so there were some things that were happening around the 1960s that are actually still going on today. Just want to throw that out. Put a little bit of context to this fun fact, or this fact that was shared in the book. Let me say it like that because it's not a fun fact. But in the summers of 1967, there were 6 cities that had riots that broke out due to frustrations with racial inequity, as well as inequality, disenfranchisement, and poverty. And so, from all of those kind of unrest, uprest, and things that were happening in those cities, one of those cities actually being Atlanta, which is where I live. Bergdorf Goodman, I thought this was interesting that Bergdorf Goodman used fashion as a pitch for racial harmony. So in 1969, so this would be 2 years after those riots that were happening in multiple cities over the summer. And in 67, they had this fashion show. So what you definitely have to read the book because I won't touch on it, but it's interesting to hear about the menu, especially in political correctness and things that were more, even though I think it was more of a not anything that was meant to be offensive, but now that we have more conversation around those type of topics, cultural sensitivity, religious, racial, all of those things, sensitivity, so on and so forth, that it's interesting to see the menu, and so you'll know what I mean if you read the book. All right, so next up is going to be, and I'm reading from notes here, so that's why I keep looking down, the American department stores. So back then, American department stores were basically creating private label copies of couture. So when couture came in, American fashion was not considered couture fashion. That, like, American fashion wasn't even on the map back then. And department stores like Lord and Taylor and Bloomingdale's and so on and so forth, all of those department stores would basically make their own private labels of couture. I believe they would get not approvals, but get make like licensing or permission to recreate these, and basically they would just take fashion designers and they would recreate these same pieces that came from the couture fashion houses like Dior and Balmain and all of those different illustrious fashion houses that are still around today. So I thought that was very interesting. So that happened in the 1950s and 60s. So I thought that was interesting because I feel like that might be kind of what a Zara is and a H&M is, like that fast fashion piece. Like, I think just to, did that lead or eventually kind of give a thread to fast fashion? Isn't that what Zara does? They take fashionable high-end items and make their version of it and then sell it. So instead of it being, $3,000, it's $100. So that's just something to think about, a little tidbit. All right, next up is going to be Calvin Klein. So I remember in high school, Calvin Klein jeans were the thing. When I close my eyes, I can think about the Calvin Klein ads, the white t-shirts, the jeans, all the sleek, skinny models, right? Nothing to what reality was at that time as far as like people's real women's bodies, shapes, and things like that. And it still happens now where you have, skinny, small women walking down the runway. It is not a reflection of real women's bodies today, but that's what I remember seeing those Calvin Klein, and I just remember Calvin Klein jeans were the thing for me in high school. I remember me and my friends used to love Calvin Klein jeans. So Calvin Klein, interestingly enough, got his start selling peacoats. So it's a far cry from jeans, which is, I don't even know how he made it over to the leap. I don't remember whether the book covers that, but I just thought that was interesting that he started with one thing, but his biggest hit, what he's really known for, is not where he started. So, you never know where you're going to end up. Just start. Other things that I thought were interesting was Beth Ann Hardison. So when I saw her last name, I thought, is she related to Kadeem Hardison? So people out there, like this video, comment down below if you remember A Different World. So, making the connection point here, Dwayne Wayne from A Different World, who was played by Kadeem Hardison, okay? His mother is Beth Ann Hardison. And Beth Ann Hardison was a model. And she was a model in Versailles. I thought that was so cool to have that connection point. I actually called my husband about that. And I was like, guess what? So she actually started her own fashion agency too, a modeling agency, I believe. But her contribution to more exposure, after that, she did more work. She did start her own fashion modeling agency. I'm sorry, like I mentioned, and she really made an effort to contribute and provide more exposure for African American models in the fashion industry. And it's something that you're always, when you look at the runways, when I think of looking at the runways now, you do see more black models, but you don't see a whole lot. Honestly, you just look at the different fashion shows. Fashion shows. You see sprinkles, and there are more races out there. And so we do need to work on that diversity thing. Representation is so key, and it feels like a great connection when you see somebody that looks like you. So seeing more that means even seeing more Asian models, more black models, more Hispanic models, so on and so forth. It should be just more diversity in fashion, and she kind of touches on that towards the end of the book. And I think it's just something that we just really need to continue to move forward with. So now jumping on to something else. Now the biggest thing, or the thing that you will see, this constant thread when she actually gets to the point of Versailles, is saying the significant difference one group of type of models made, which there were, I don't remember the exact number, but there were several African American models that were in Battle of Versailles. So they pretty much, what happened was, they all the designers, so that's Halston, De La Renta, and Klein. There were so many, there were not so many, but there were designers out there. There were several of them. I don't remember the exact number, but they all pulled models. And then like the big wig designers, they got to kind of get their own, like they would have like one or two that they would basically pay for. She references that in the book, like Halston paid for one of his own models, I think, that he really wanted to be there. But basically they pulled all models. But the biggest kind of difference that Battle of Versailles made for the Americans was not the execution of the clothing, was not the style. It was actually the black models, which I thought was really cool. And it was because, I guess, like, back then, the black models would put more personality in fashion shows, which seems so weird because when you look at fashion shows now, they just walk down the runway. They don't smile. They just walk down the runway and everybody does the same thing. And that's what they actually were doing. It's like basically a reflection of what they were doing before. But I guess at some period of time, black models would, put a little fanfare with it, do a little dancing, moving, that kind of thing, putting more personality into the clothes, which brought the clothes to life. And that's what really made the biggest difference with the success of the fashion show, which I thought was very interesting and really cool. So that was, let me see, all of the ones that I wanted to mention. Overall, I just got the message from the book. Oh, there were several messages, and one of them being message about belief and persistence can make changes. And I think that is something that we all should strive for. We all should do, whatever that looks like. We just want to make sure that, you leave this world better than you found it, which is, the best way to move forward. She did bring up an interesting mention here, which is, I think still today, for me, for example, I've been at my job for more than 10 years. And I come from a science background, but I've always loved fashion, and I've always loved handbags and things like that. And I always felt odd or weird or insecure talking about fashion, because I felt like I'm not going to be taken seriously in my professional world because fashion's frivolous. And she talks about that in the book, and it's very interesting that we still have that concept and perception today, I feel like. Like, no one from my job knows I have this channel. I will not share that at work because I don't feel... There's a couple of reasons, but one of them being I feel insecure talking about fashion, frivolous things like fashion, and being perceived as a serious person, as being perceived as smart, intelligent, so on and so forth. So it was funny that she mentioned Desiree Rogers, who was with, I forgot her specific role, but she worked with Michelle Obama, while they were in the White House. And she had brought up the question about why is there an issue with women being fashionable and smart? Like, why is that a problem? Why can't you be taken seriously and look nice and look fashionable while you do it? Like, it's just that you're smart. It doesn't take away from that. You just, have a little style sense to you. I don't want to say you care about what you look like, because that's not fair to someone else who's not as fashionable. They could very well care what they look like, but they just maybe don't have the touch or the jazz to kind of put things together and look effortless and chic the way that some women can. For example, Michelle Obama is one of those people. She is smart, intelligent, she's a mother, and she's also fashionable too. So it's just, weird and odd. And I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on kind of, do you feel that way as well, especially women out there, whether you kind of feel like you can't talk about or focus on the fashion side of things in professional settings. Like to get your opinion and see what you all are thinking, what you all are experiencing too. And then I think that was everything. So I really did like the book, like I said, and I did like at the end where towards the end of the book, Robin did also focus on what happened after Versailles. So she talked about what happened with the different designers, kind of how some brands fizzled out, how some catapulted to higher heights. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention was Klein. I thought I had this listed on here, but Klein, some of the designers did treat her very poorly. And it's so sad because she had cancer at the time and no one knew it. But they didn't take her seriously because Anne Klein did something that was different. At the time, couture was it. High fashion was it. But Anne Klein is the reason we now have suit separates. She was making a killing doing suit separates. Before, you had a jacket and it had to go with the skirt and they were purchased together. So it was a smart move by her because at that time, women were starting to enter the workforce. They needed work clothes. And to be able to mix and match that same jacket with 3 other pieces versus having to buy 3 suits is very important, helpful, and it's very economical. And she was making a lot of money doing that and had a lot of success with it. But they didn't take her seriously because she was doing ready to wear, which is... It's funny enough, before it was couture, that was the big wig. You were a part of the in crowd, the important group when you were doing couture. Now it's ready to wear. No, there are people walking around with a $300,000 dress on. There absolutely is. And you see it on the runways now still and on red carpets where, still couture dresses are it. And there's, a whole society out there, people who... It's nothing for them to, spend $300,000 on one dress that they're going to wear one time for one party. Absolutely is space for that. But now it's ready to wear. Ready to wear is the thing. Which made me think about the book Deluxe, I think it's called Deluxe, How Luxury Lost Its Luster. That one was an interesting one too that people should read as well. And just thinking about kind of what the masses, mass production, that type of thing. So not the intricate details of sewing every little sequin on, 3,000 sequences on a sleeve, for example, and it looks amazing and beautiful, but more, let me make this design so that 5,000 people can wear the same thing. That's where the money is. So it was very interesting reading some of the things that she referenced in that book, and then also thinking back to when I read the other book that I had just mentioned. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you go out and buy the book, and I will talk to you again soon.